All right, cool. So this is actually, that good? Thank you. Cool, man. This is awesome. Live and in person fire chat.
All right.
Fireside chat. And we got podcasts here. We got some other guys online. Yeah, I'd like to kind of do some introductory questions, some big picture questions, and then talk about kind of origin story a little bit. So I guess one thing, just to start out, do you remember when we met?
Yeah. Yeah.
When was that?
So that was back in 2007.
Yeah.
It was Will Thorndike who introduced us.
Yeah.
And we met you at a shitty cafe or someplace.
Easy.
Someplace.
University Club, I think.
No.
Really?
That was after you had seen that we were like real guys.
Okay.
You invited us to.
Oh, okay. So the first one was like a coffee date where I was like, I don't know, I want to date this girl.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like there's a couple Mexican dudes.
I'm
like, wait a second, what's going on here?
Yeah. Once we paid for that, then you said, okay, this is something legit. Then you invited us to the university. And a couple of times to the Four Seasons. So.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
That's why I brought that in.
All right. Cool.
But like many things, Will Thorndike was like.
Yeah. So we'll get back to that point in time, but so we talked about this before, but I think we need to get a little bit of it on tape. Is like just exactly how badly does the Mexican soccer team suck, and why is that? And we talked about it for 25 minutes.
It depends who you ask. So yeah, if you ask soccer fans like me, yeah, it sucks really bad. I mean, we're in for a horrible World Cup next year. It's gonna be.
You're such an optimist, dude. Always.
I mean, if there's ever a U.S.-Mexico match, it's just gonna be horrible. But in all seriousness, I think it's because of the incentives. Like I said, the Mexican team is managed for business, and they make a lot of money the way it is, and they don't wanna fix what's not broken in their minds.
Yeah.
So again, in sports, it's what are the incentives and what are you paying your players for? So players get paid the same, doesn't matter the outcome. So that gives you the answer.
All right, so let's go to some big picture questions. So before we're gonna dive into the story, I like to ask guys like at this point in their career, like, what are you like most proud of?
So I think I'm proud about on the professional side, what we built at Alvarez. The outcome wasn't what we all hoped for, but I think we were able to build something that was it was meaningful. It had an impact in a country like Mexico. We were able to create a lot of jobs, sustain a lot of families, pay a lot of taxes, and show like a generation of entrepreneurs that things could be built really big. And I still get a lot of emails and messages from random people just saying, hey, I saw you build this. How would you handle this? I have this situation here. Could you help me? And that I'm proud of. Personally, I'm proud of my wife and my kids for going through all of it with me and not going insane in the process. So I have to be very grateful for them, right, for being there. It was, being an entrepreneur and building something and building it fast necessarily takes you away from time away from your family, so yeah, you only have 24 hours per day, and so you gotta make some choices. And I think having somebody to back you up is really important. So creating that is very important, and it's something that I think about a lot, whether based on the outcome of Alpha Credit was that all worth it, right? But I think it was, because I learned a lot about, because of failure, you learn a lot. A lot of things crystallize in a way that they wouldn't if you just think that success was because of you being there, right? And so when that doesn't come along, and then you think about your opportunity cost, you start thinking about important things like family and family time. But then I think that showing your kids and giving them that example was what was worth it for. The hard work and just going the non-conventional route, being an entrepreneur in a developing country where things are stacked against you all the time, was what is most important for me. It's more the journey than where we are.
So I want to dig into the whole office story because these guys want to hear it, but let's just go back a little bit to get a little bit of backstory. So you grew up in Mexico City, and just where did you go to high school and college?
So I grew up in Mexico City, but which was important, I spent 2 years in Switzerland when I was 11 to 13.
Okay.
So I came back and I studied in a French lycée, which is a French government school in Mexico City.
Okay.
So that's where I went to high school. After that, I graduated in 1 year at La Sorbonne in Paris. Figured out I was studying to become a lawyer in France, but I quickly figured out that I didn't want to live in Paris or France all my life. And but if I was studying law there, I was going to be stuck there. So I went back to Mexico and I did college there, and I studied law, which in Mexico is an undergrad.
Okay.
So I did that, and then worked at a law firm for 5 years, and then did my MBA here in the US.
Yeah, you went to that school across the river.
That famous East Coast school, which shall remain unnamed.
Yeah. I have questions about that, but I'll leave that for later. So what did you do? What did you do for your summer associate job at HBS?
So I worked for Goldman Sachs at their investment banking.
That's right. That's right. As did I.
As did you.
And neither of us went back.
No.
What group at Goldman Sachs for you?
So I was at investment banking at their San Francisco office.
Okay, all right.
Which at the time, so this is 2007, they did mostly technology, media, and telecom.
Okay.
Famous TMT.
Yeah.
But since I was a lawyer, I got recruited to a special situations group.
Okay.
Which all they did was defend hostile takeovers.
Oof.
Which was brutal.
Yeah.
But it taught me a lot about securities laws applied in a really tight time frame.
Yeah.
The problem with that was that I was working like 22 hours per day.
Yeah.
My wife obviously didn't like that.
So what brought you to your business partner, and the idea of search?
Sure. So Jose Luis Orozco, who is also from Mexico, he was my business partner for the search. He went to a search fund talk with David. What was his name?
Dodson?
No, the lawyer from Cho. And
Somewhat.
yeah, somewhat a book
Yeah,
but
yeah.
so so this was a VCP club. They did this, which they were great.
Yeah.
So they did this talks like this one with this lawyer and a search fund investor, which I don't remember his name, sure. And he calls me that night and said, "Hey, I saw the perfect model. This is great. It's called a search fund, but I don't know if this can be done for Mexico. I'm sending you the presentation right now. Check your email." So I'm on the phone with him, check the presentation. I go, "This is great. You should do it for Mexico." And he's like, "I don't know. You think this legally can be done in Mexico?" And I'm like, "Who cares about Mexico? We'll incorporate this in the US and we'll just be in Mexico. We'll
Right.
just search in Mexico."
Right.
And so we talked to this lawyer, David, and he said, "Yeah, you can do this." And that's how it'll start.
Yeah.
And we were the first search fund in Mexico.
Right.
So again, this was May 2008, and that was how.
So the thing that was unique about what you guys did was you searched, but then the actual company that you built was not. You didn't buy it.
We didn't buy it, so we started. And I get a lot of questions and a lot of inquiries, and where people say, "Hey, you did a startup. You started this company," and it's in a sense it's true, but in a sense it isn't, because through the search model, we had 2 years of looking and developing, looking into the industry first, and seeing and researching what would be the best way to enter that industry. And I don't know if it was David Dodson who suggested we take that approach. But it's different from just waking up one day and saying, "Hey, I'm going to do a startup," when you're in a search fund, right? Because we knew very well the industry we wanted to go into. And so the question was not about finding this idea, this killer idea, but it was which was the best way to enter that industry, which at that point was the non-banking or the non-regulated financial industry in Mexico, which had a really low penetration credit. And we started looking at the industry participants, and we saw that they had high valuation expectations, and that they were only 2, 3, 4 years old, companies. So you were only buying 2 or 3 years at most, right? And you were paying a high multiple for doing that. So this was a great industry to start your own and not pay a multiple to enter that industry. Okay. So that was the thought process. And so by the time we started the company, we had 10 clients. So it wasn't like the idea of a startup, that idea of a true startup that people think.
Just explain to the students what exactly the company did.
So originally what we did was provide personal loans to government employees in Mexico, whereby the collection of those loans was done through a deduction of their payroll by their employee. So we would provide a loan, and then the repayment was done in installments, but instead of people just paying us with a check, we would have an agreement with their employer so that the employer would deduct from the paycheck on a monthly or bi-weekly basis those payments. That evolved into something bigger, where we made loans within what we call a closed circuit. And a closed circuit was any situation where the cash flow that could enhance the collection could be intervened or garnished, so that we could get payment without the debtor having to do anything about the payment. So that's what Alpha Credit did. And so we worked with not only government employees, but like Uber drivers, where we would make a loan to an Uber driver, and then Uber would make the deductions before paying their part.
So it's kind of like almost like a credit union. In a way.
No, because so on the active side, so because on the loan side, but we would not take deposits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
From the general public, which was very important. And in the end, I think one of the reasons Alvarez came down was that having to fund your operations with wholesale financing and mismatching the assets to the liabilities became a true risk.
Yeah.
And that was because our regulatory environment and the regulatory authorization prohibited us from taking deposits from the general public.
Right.
And we wanted to change that, but it was just too late.
Yeah. So essentially, just to explain to that point, so if you guys think about a bank will take deposits and then loan that capital out. But in this situation, it's kind of like a non-bank financial institution where off credit was, at least at first, going to, and the overall context is that consumer credit in Mexico is like non-existent. And so people don't have access to like basic financial products. And so off credit went to, government employees who had, very secure jobs, and used those jobs and their income basically as collateral to make really good loans. Like the default rates were very, very low. And in that way provide like basic financial products to that population that didn't have access to them before. And at first it worked great.
Yeah.
Like it grew. We'll talk about it. What were kind of the steps of growth, and how did you finance it in terms of equity and debt?
Yeah, so we raised, at the beginning, we raised 5 million of equity, then another 5, so that was 10. So in the first 5 years, we raised 50 million in equity, and around, like, let me just convert that pesos to dollars, but that has fluctuated. So we've raised around 300 million in debt.
Of dollars.
Everything in dollars. That doesn't mean that the 300 were on top of the 50, because that was revolving debt. So that's absolute dollars. And then we had a large institutional investor come in with close to 100 million of equity.
Yeah.
And then we raised 2 144A Reg S public bonds that you list publicly, and people can trade on them. And the first one was for 300 million US, and the second one was for 400. So in all, I think we raised around 1.8 billion in equity plus debt.
So it's a big fucking company.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It's a lot and so in terms of employees, it went from 2 founders, 1 employee, to around 1,200 employees, to 4,000 sales reps. We were in 180 locations in Mexico and around 90 locations in Colombia. And so that side of the business, I think, grew very, very fast. And obviously, I mean, what happened was that we found by 2021, we found, so, and this started with one company. And as we grew and we started different businesses and different loan operations, we had different companies. And so consolidating all those companies in a holding company created its own accounting challenges. And we discovered that there was an accounting mistake in 2021. And since we were like a semi-public company, we made the disclosure to the market, and then the prices of the bonds went down. So that meant that the cost of them went up, and refinancing that was going to be a huge challenge. And so that's the technical thing of what happened. But, you know, in hindsight, I think for an entrepreneur, I think the lessons to be learned here are many, but I would focus on.
For this time, not so you guys understand. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
So we had to.
It was very, very painful, but the company went broke.
The company went broke. So we had to completely restructure. And so that wiped out the equity, and the bondholders and the debt holders that were unsecured essentially became the new owners of the company. And so I went together with Jose Luis through a 2.5 years restructuring process, and then eventually, that's a really complicated process. I don't want anybody in the world to go through it. But if it takes a lot of time, and then eventually, what happens is that that committee or that group of investors take control of the company, and they can liquidate the assets or not. But I think the lessons here is, why were the conditions there for an accounting mistake to happen? And the first one is, when you grow companies this fast, you gotta look into how you build resiliency into companies. And so startups are not resilient by nature. But if you have a single point of failure, like in fintechs, and especially credit fintechs that depend on wholesale financing, that's a single point of failure. And I think we didn't manage the company acknowledging that we had a single point of failure. Because culturally, when you talk about entrepreneurs, people seem to think that you are this rock star entrepreneur that has grown the company and brought it from point A to point B to point C to point D. And it's easy to think that the same guy is going to take company to point Z, right? All the way to the end. Because you've been so successful taking the company from point A to B to point C. And when you're there, again, it's hard for everybody, right? Entrepreneurs, your advisors, the board, investors, even the bankers that are selling you the debt, and your auditors that are there, to look at things holistically and say, hey, guys, we gotta admit that here we have something that is, decreasing significantly our resiliency. Mm-hmm. And so why do you want resiliency? Because in startups and in companies in general, you're gonna make mistakes, and you want companies that are able to sustain 1, 2, 3, 4 mistakes. And I think at AlphaGrade, we had a company that, one mistake in that single point of failure, and we were gone. And that's.
So the issue was that the accounting mistake affected so we had $700 million of public bonds out there that had very stringent covenants, tripped the covenants. And so it was just like dominoes. It's like basically like you strike a match, on a house that's full of gasoline. It's just like, and there's really no going back once the dominoes are moving.
Exactly, because public debt is that way. And so if this accounting mistake had happened in any other situation where you don't have public debt, it would have been like super nasty, horrible, but maybe we would have had the
Survive,
time
yeah.
to survive.
So I want to make sure that these guys have time for questions. So I want to try and get just a few things I want to still talk about. So just talk about like as a business person, as a human being, like what's the experience of like basically being like search fund rock star to watching your house burn.
Yeah, so at the beginning, it was very human. I could not talk about this without crying. Like literally, it was like talking out for credit. It was like me crying like a baby. And I made people
because I saw it. We were talking on the phone and he'd be crying.
Tom was there, so he knows what I mean. And then I remember, Dave Dodson, he said, "Hey, I want you to go to therapy. I mean, you really need to talk to a professional about this because, it's going to eat you up and your wife's going to leave you." And I mean, he was like really serious. And he says, "Hey, I know, money wise, this is not cheap, or at least in the US, this is not cheap. So if you don't have the money, I'm willing to pay for that." And I thought that was like, really generous. And I said, "Hey, I think I that's not money's not the issue here. At least in Mexico, it's not the issue." But it made me like force myself into going to see this therapist in Mexico who has specialized in failed businessmen. And so I would go on Tuesday nights to see him. And so at least, and then I started, that therapist said, "Hey, you can either sit here and cry for the next 15 years or try to make something about this." And it has been a journey about trying to make something about this. It's not like in the movies where you get this pep talk and and you're fine going out there. But it's like a shift in, okay, I'm going to try to do something about why this happened. And the first thing we thought was the way I thought people saw me, right? So you have this idea about how people think and how that's going to be destroyed, right? And he basically said, "Hey, people don't give a shit about you. I mean, they say they do, but they don't. Okay? You're gonna find who your true friends are in the next few months. You're gonna find out that, maybe some of those bankers that called you like every day to have lunch with you, maybe one or two is gonna continue to call you, but like 99% of them, they're gone. They were not your true friends." And he was right. And by the way, my wife said the same thing. But she was right. And so every week I would work on something, right? And then in the middle of the night when I would wake up and say, "Hey, I know we did this like 3 years ago and we took this decision and we should have taken this route," and I would write that down. And I have this personal blog where I wrote down. I've been writing. I mean, it's a constant journey, right? It's not like one. And that helps you a lot to just, hey, this is what we did. This is what I think went wrong. This is why we did it. And it's really easy to think that when you're in hindsight, it's really easy to be really hard on you because you have the benefit of hindsight, right? But you gotta put that in context of why at that point in time you took that decision. And so I write about those 4 things every time I think about something that I would have done different. And that helps a lot. And so that has crystallized my learnings. And so now when people come and say, "Hey, I'm facing this situation," I got a call 3 weeks ago about a non-financial entity that's going, they're going to announce in in a few weeks that they're going bankrupt, and this is the founder, and he says, hey, friend of a friend recommend I talk to you. I'm like, I can speak to him and be helpful. That helps me. The other thing is that it has made me closer to my family. So spending more time with my daughters, with my wife, which is something I cherish a lot. So there are one things that you lose, but then, life gives you some.
I just remember our conversations. Like, so I would go down to Mexico City, and Augusto would drag me to Azteca Stadium and like all kinds of nonsense.
You guys have to go. I've heard a lot.
But and we had a really good relationship, like a really good relationship. And I would have said we were close friends, but like when the shit hit the fan, we became completely different friends.
Yeah,
Much closer friends.
exactly.
And
that's
I cherish. I mean, honestly, I cherish our relationship now. And I would have always felt like you're a great guy and like one of my friends, but now like you're one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And like it just was completely different.
Yeah, it was completely different. And I think going through this experience helps you like, cherish those relationships that are true relationships and that add you something to your life. And most important, when you see that you can add something to somebody's life, right?
Good.
And I remember when we were talking and you shared some of your stuff, and I was like, fuck, I wasn't there for Tom, right? He was going through this, and I was going through that exactly when I thought I was this rock star search fund entrepreneur, which was complete bullshit. And I wasn't there for a friend, right? And so now I'm trying to be a lot more conscious about being there for my friends and not making things. It's hard.
Well, I mean, the way that works is you just play it forward, right? It's like the only reason that I stepped in was because I had been through things that I could relate to what you were going through.
Exactly.
So I was like, this is the time I need to be calling Augusto and like asking him what the fuck I can do to help him because he's in pain right now.
Yeah.
I've been in that pain.
And I think it's super meaningful, and that's what I keep from this experience. You can either sit there, which again, there are days when I go back to that dark place and I sit there and I'm like, why the fuck did this happen, and why did this happen to me? And by the way, at the same time, both my parents died, my best friend died from cancer, so it was like, what the fuck is going on with my life? Why is but then you gotta be able to see the good things in your life.
Yeah.
Spending more time with my kids, they're doing great.
So we were in Tucson. So Augusto was with me for my 60th birthday. We had a bunch of guys out in Tucson. He like took off on me up some huge mountain climb, whatever. But we were doing meditation, and you had like a something you talked.
Yeah, the mantra.
Yeah, mantra. Talk about that.
So, a book I would recommend everybody to read is Mihail Csikszentmihalyi. You'll need to look it up. Butchered his name, but he wrote a very famous book called Flow. Okay, and you can read the Cliff Notes, but essentially it's like he put a name to this state of mind where you can concentrate and you have this tunnel vision, where you are enjoying that activity that you're doing in such a way that you're able to, basically ignore the world, right? And there are many ways to get into that flow state. And one of them is, breathing. And another way that I found really useful was using a mantra. And so I mountain bike a lot, and I used to be a lot more, crazy about downhills. I'm more reserved now, but And so basically, I read a lot about what made this downhill riders really fast, and it was the way they were able to concentrate really fast in these like 2 minutes downhill races, right? So you really have to concentrate in 1 second, and if you and basically do not think, right? So it's the same as the ski racers. They're not thinking. They gotta put themselves into this flow state. And so mine is then choose commit, which is basically, and I repeat that, then choose commit every time I'm downhill, or riding a bike, or whenever I need to like put myself into this flow state of mind. And that can work for getting the right mindset for an exam or whatever. But 10 means looking 10 feet ahead. Okay. Choose means choose your line where you're gonna go. And commit means do not change the line once you chose it, right? For me, it has helped me apply that in business too, because you gotta try to look into the future. So that's 10 months or 10 years ahead. As a leader in business, you gotta commit. That's what people are looking for you. For you, you gotta commit. You gotta choose what's the line. You're gonna, what's the path, and then again, as a leader, you can't flake, right? You can't be like doubting yourself and second guessing what you're doing. Again, because those are the things that make you fall when you're going 50 miles per hour in downhill. And so I would recommend everybody to find that mantra that can get you concentrated really fast, and use it not only in sports but in everyday situations.
Okay, let me one more quick question. So and then we'll let these guys ask a few, and then I know you have a back end you gotta get to. So they're just finished their freshman and sophomore years, going to sophomore and junior year of college, all kind of interested in business in general. What kind of tangible things would you tell them to do at this point?
So I get this question pretty often, and what I want to tell you guys is, if I were your age, I would continue to do things, academically and professionally. That means getting internships, starting a business, and what you guys are doing. That can give you options in life, like all the free options that you want. There will come a time where you're gonna need to concentrate your pathways or your routes or your life choices a little bit more. But right now, anything you do that will give you a free option in the future is great. So unless you tell me that you're super passionate about underwater acoustics, and you really want to concentrate on that, it's probably not worth that you do a minor and major on underwater acoustics, right? Because that's not going to open you a lot of options. By the way, I have a good friend who has a PhD on. So Janice, if you're listening to this, but that's not a. He was really passionate about that at the beginning, and so he did his PhD. But again, it's not the way I would recommend people, and especially not right now where the future of education or the way we educate people is going to change dramatically in the next 5 years, 10 years, probably yes. So anything you do that is foundational will open you up to more options. Think of it, there are very few ways in life to get free options, but one of them is education in foundation. And also, the other thing I would recommend is you are at that age where you can do really random and radical internships and or stash. So do them, even if it's like 3 weeks in Indonesia to check out the soccer industry over there. I mean, that's almost a no risk decision, so do it. And so those are like the two things that for the next 5 years, don't worry about that, just do it.
Yeah. All right, so we have like 14 minutes, so I want to try and make sure everyone gets a chance. So let's go this way.
Yeah, I think that's a great question and something I've thought about a lot, which is people don't talk a lot about mental health.
Yeah.
But new generations and younger generations like you guys, I think it's more open and you should profit from that. And we all go to the dentist like once every 6 months or 1 year, but people should check in, mentally speaking, and build that into your lives. One way I've seen that is super helpful is to have to work with a coach. In the US, it's super ingrained. There are many opportunities to, touch base with a coach through the
Like a
university.
performance coach,
Like a performance
Yeah.
coach.
but for business.
But for business, many universities have a network of coaches. And if you get used to doing that from the start of your career, I think there's nothing to lose there and a lot to be gained.
Yeah, I mean, I think an additional point there is that a lot of kind of success and frankly meaning also is about how self-aware you are and kind of your EQ. And the more you actually understand yourself, the more you're going to be able to understand somebody else. And so you're going to be able to lead them better. You're going to be able to mentor them when they're screwing up, know when to go hard on them, know when not to go hard on them, know when, somebody's in trouble and you got to step in big time, right? So.
Yeah, and it will help you look into your blind spots.
Yeah.
And understanding you have blind spots. Like for me, it took me 40 years to understand that they were even blind spots. And so working with somebody on those things is super helpful.
So let's keep going. We're not going to make
So I really enjoyed my ideal career, but I thought I was lacking into understanding the language of business. So I thought I was too pigeonholed in legal work, and a friend suggested I was having this conversation. I told him, hey, I think I need to learn a different language, the language of business, and he was like, have you seen this thing? It's called an MBA, and I was like, what is that? Checked it out, and I said, this is exactly what I need to do, and that's how. And I was super happy I did it because I went to do my MBA and I learned language of finance, of marketing, of HR, strategy, and blah blah blah. But that's why.
Awesome. Thank you. Kind of mentioned it there.
So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that when you grow up and there are professional relationships that you have to have, obviously. the line between who adds value and who is a positive relationship can be blurry sometimes. And that's because, again, if you're not self-aware or not that self-aware, you start thinking that it's more important what people say or think about you than what you think about yourself. And you gotta get back to those relationships that will keep you honest. And we all know, and we all have somebody that's like that it's, they're super candid, and you know that they're gonna bring you back down, and so you avoid them because you know that it's gonna be a hard conversation, but in the end, you know that they're right. And so we're gonna check in with them. All right.
Mhm.
I enjoy working with teams, with high performance multidisciplinary teams, and that's why I enjoy operating companies. That's what I really like about entrepreneurship, building teams, and having some sort of leadership role. And once you have a high performing team, which is multidisciplinary, you learn a lot from it. And that's, the plus factor for me, which I enjoyed working at a high performance law firm and then going work for Goldman Sachs, which again, it's really high performing, and then working in the search fund community, which is also a very high performance community. And so whenever I'm not doing that, I miss that a lot. So I like working with people and solving problems in a high performance team. So I read this book more than a few times. And I have this monkey brain, which it's hard for me to concentrate. Right? So then I read a few books about, this guy who, it's really a book about riding mountain bikes, and it's like an instruction book. It's like a nerdy book that nobody reads, but maybe me. And he has like this, not even a chapter, it's like a few pages about, getting in the right mindset. And so I got an inspiration from that guy about looking ahead, choosing your path, and then committing. And then it was like any mantra, it started like with a huge paragraph, and then it ended up just being 3 words. And that's how a lot of people do it. Like they start writing books, literally a book, and then condensing that into a few ideas, a few pages, a few paragraphs, until it goes to a poem, or really like 2 lines, 1 line, 3 words. It doesn't go the other way around. It's like first started with many things.
Cool. So I like to wrap these up with 2 stupid questions, but I'm gonna ask them to you anyways. What's your favorite movie?
The Shawshank Redemption.
Nice. That's a good one. We have not had that yet.
Awesome.
And if you want to leave these guys with 1 word, what would the 1 word be?
Be resilient.
I love you, brother.
I love you
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you guys.